OCD is torture to go through, to live with, to experience. I don't think that there's another word that aptly describes just how it feels to find yourself in an OCD spiral, except that it feels like torture. I feel like even saying that it's torturous is undermining the severity of it. I don't think there's a word to fully encompass like just how horrifying it is to go through OCD. What many people don't realize is that OCD actually goes hand in hand with health anxiety. And health anxiety is something that I've experienced in my own life, and it has impacted me massively in my own life. When I was about 17 years old, I discovered I started to experience a twitching in my fingers and in my wrist. And my mom had this huge medical book. I don't know why, but I immediately went to this book and I looked up twitching. And that's when I came across ALS, which is also known as motor neuron disease. And I convinced myself that I have this. And let me just tell you that the fear that you experience, that feeling in your belly, that like complete mind numbing fear, I don't even have words to describe just how horrifying it is. I felt that fear. And like I said, I truly believed and convinced myself, or I should say that health anxiety convinced me that I have this absolutely horrifying illness. Things only spiraled from there. I suddenly had twitching all over my body. I had facial twitching. I have pretty much experienced a twitch in every part of my body. And of course, my fear only grew because now there was evidence that it had to be something serious because it was getting worse. And I was experiencing it in more than just one part of my body. And I promise you that I know that the ALS phase is very common with people who struggle with health anxiety. And that's just one of the phases that I've been through in my life. It's just one of the major fears that I've had. There are many, many, many more. But this phase lasted for a good while. It lasted for a few years. And it was something that would always kind of come back up for me. So it would ease up, and then there would be something else in the meantime. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, how health anxiety loves to jump from one thing to the next. But I would often come back to this specific fear. And I think with health anxiety, there's often like one major thing, not always, but sometimes there's like one major thing that we tend to fixate on. And even when it leaves that for a while and it jumps around, we come back to this one big thing. And for me, that was ALS. But like I said, that was just one of the major phases and fears that I dealt with. And what many people don't understand about health anxiety, or they don't even realize, is that OCD goes hand in hand with health anxiety. And you can know that you're experiencing OCD just by what you go through. So the compulsive checking, whether that's Googling, asking people for reassurance, making doctor's appointments, constantly checking things on your own body. I would drive myself crazy the way that I would check things on myself. I went through a phase with my lymph nodes where I would not be able to sleep because I would be sitting in bed at 2 a.m. and there would be one specific lymph node that I would be feeling over and over and over. And OCD is not logical and fear is not logical. So a logical person looking at the situation would say, well, you felt your lymph node, you know what it feels like. It's not going to change in the next few minutes or the next few seconds, because sometimes I was genuinely feeling it constantly. But logic goes out the window when we're dealing with fear and when we're dealing with OCD. But the compulsion is what we can't stop. Like, we can't stop acting on the compulsion, which in the case of health anxiety would be, well, in this case would be me constantly checking the lymph nodes in my neck. And I drove myself insane. And I know that if you have health anxiety, you probably drive yourself insane with how you are constantly checking something. And that can show up in many different ways. It could be sitting on Google and going down the Google rabbit hole of freaking doom. It could be constantly making doctor's appointments. It could be asking people in your life for reassurance, whether that's just asking them for reassurance or actually asking them to check something like a mole or a lymph node or whatever it is that you could be dealing with on your body. um, it's living in your head. And this is what's I feel so torturous about OCD is you have these irrational worst case thoughts, but you can't help it, and you can't stop it. Like, the thoughts are there, and you can be a very logical person and have so much awareness, but the thoughts are so intense that you actually start to feel it as a physical response in your body. And once that happens, things often spiral from there. OCD is known as the doubting disorder. So this means that you are always doubting that you're okay. But the tricky part of OCD is that OCD demands reassurance. So on the one hand, it's constantly causing you to doubt what's happening. So even if you get reassurance, which is what it's demanding of you, there's always doubt. So it's never happy. And as you can see, it becomes this vicious cycle. So the more reassurance you're trying to give it, the more it's doubting. And you're like, but if I just give it a little bit more reassurance, then I'll get to that place where I feel fully secure and there's no more doubt. But when you're dealing with OCD, there will always be doubts. And I know this just from talking to people in the one on one chats that I do. People that I speak to have been through every single test that you can think of. They've gone to the doctor multiple times. Maybe you're dealing with a symptom that you have dealt with so many times that your logical brain is telling you, if this was something serious, something bad would have happened by now. But you have OCD, and this is what it comes back to all the time. OCD is known as the doubting disorder. And what's so important is having that awareness and that understanding of what OCD is. OCD can make you feel like you are crazy. And I used to say that a lot. Like, I feel like I'm a crazy person. Or if I was asking somebody for reassurance, I would be like, I know I'm being so crazy. I'm sorry, but I'm just really worried, blah, blah, blah. But the point that I am at now in my life where I can say that I'm recovered from health anxiety OCD specifically, you are not crazy for struggling. And unless you have been in the shoes of somebody who goes through health anxiety, and I know that you watching this video, it may be you, then you can't even begin to understand what it's like. It is torturous. It is all consuming. It takes over your entire life. I remember I would go to work and I used to work as an esthetician at different salons, and I would do manicures and pedicures. It's like another life. And I would do like massages and facials and things. And I was going through quite bad health anxiety during this time of my life. And I would be obsessing over a symptom, and I would go to work and I would not be able to stop thinking about the symptom. And I would constantly be needing to take little breaks or go to the bathroom just to check something again, to the point where I felt like I was losing it. So you're certainly not crazy for struggling with OCD. OCD and health anxiety is something that to go through it is just, I know if you're watching that you understand. It's really hard to, because I'm trying to put it into words as if I'm talking to someone who hasn't gone through it, so I can try to really, I can really paint a picture of what it's like to live with it. But I feel like we could describe it as best as we can and use all the words that, like it's torturous, it feels like you're in hell, and then constant nightmare. But unless you go through it, you don't really know the extent of the fear and just how deep the fear is. And that feeling in your belly, is just, yeah, it's really bad. So if that's you, my heart truly does go out to you because I know what it's like. And when I was going through it, I felt very isolated. I felt very alone. I felt like no one could understand. You talk to people in your life about it and they try to help you, but if they haven't been through it, they don't really know what to say. And if someone says, "Oh, that sounds pretty bad," or "I think you should really see a doctor," you don't realize how triggering that is for us, because most of the time we've been to the doctor many times, but because we have OCD, we've just been to the doctor, but we still doubt ourselves or doubt what the doctor said. So then someone says, "I think you should see a doctor," and we're like, "Oh my God." And the spiral begins again. OCD has actually showed up in my life in many different ways and not just connected to health anxiety. And I will make other videos about that if you're interested for me to talk about that and death anxiety. And like I've struggled with death anxiety, OCD. I've struggled with relationship OCD, and just a lot of OCD thoughts that really can drive me to the brink. I've actually been dealing with a flare up recently that has nothing to do with health anxiety, and for that, I'm so grateful. But it kind of inspired me to sit down and actually talk about OCD, because no matter how it's showing up in your life, it is still torturous regardless, because it's causing you to doubt, it's causing you to constantly need to seek out reassurance that never comes. You either never get the reassurance that you're constantly seeking and craving, or you feel reassured, but it doesn't last long before you're needing more reassurance or before there's something else. And I think it's important for me to emphasize the something else part. Notice how it's never one thing that we're obsessing over forever. It's never like that. And even if it is, even if there's one specific thing, it can still be classified as OCD. But usually with health anxiety and OCD in general, um, it's never one thing. It's not like, okay, well, if I just get reassurance for this symptom that I'm struggling with, let's say you're worrying about your heart and you're having a lot of chest pain and heart palpitations, and if you can just get reassurance for the symptoms in your chest and you can get told that you're fine and you can really just believe it, you'll be cured and your OCD will be gone. And like I said, you're either not going to get the reassurance or it's going to be short lived before you're worrying about your heart again, or it's going to jump to something else. And this is the thing. So we put so much focus on the one thing that we're obsessing over, and we're not putting the focus on the OCD. The problem is not the symptom, because we're looking for reassurance about the symptom or about whatever it is that we're fixated on, and we need reassurance for it. That is not the problem. The problem is the OCD. So, what do you do when OCD is driving everything and it's causing you to constantly obsess and fixate? Because the reassurance is a band-aid. It's not getting to the root thing, which is the OCD. The OCD is lying hidden behind the scenes, and it's pulling the strings and controlling everything, making you think that the symptom is the problem, making you think that this thing is the problem. You just need reassurance, you'll be better, you'll move on. But the OCD is still there. You haven't been able to cut the strings. The OCD is still controlling everything behind the scenes. So it helps me sometimes to personify, like give um, form to my anxiety or my OCD, and to kind of think of it as like a little creature that's so hungry all the time. And I constantly have to feed it with reassurance, but it never gets full. And in the meantime, it's just wearing me down because I'm not able to feed myself. And other words, I'm not able to take care of myself because I'm just focusing on taking care of my OCD and giving it what it's telling me it needs. But really, it's just never enough. It's never satisfied. So, OCD recovery is not easy. I'm not going to lie and say, like, just do this one thing, you'll be cured. And I really dislike videos like that and promises like that, because realistically, you're dealing with this really hard thing and it's going to be hard to break free from it. it's not going to let you go that easily. But once you start to understand it and become aware of it, where you can say, you're not so hidden anymore, I can actually see you, that's when changes can start to happen. So that's a positive, and that's a step in the right direction. And I think even just watching this video, and if this video is making you more aware of your OCD and how it's controlling everything, then you've already taken one step in the right direction, and that's huge. But once you become aware and once you can acknowledge it and you see it, I feel like you can't really go back. Like for me, when I first started to understand health anxiety and generalized anxiety disorder, it was hard for me to go back to where I was before that, because now I knew that my constant anxiety symptoms that I dealt with, even when I wasn't anxious, had a name, and that was generalized anxiety disorder. So honestly, like becoming aware and acknowledging this thing that's just been controlling your whole life is a really big step forward. So, OCD wants constant reassurance. So, the way to start to break free from OCD is to stop giving it that reassurance. And trust me, I know that this is easier said than done. My gosh, I know. Um, if you're Googling all the time and someone is like, well, it's obvious, just don't Google anymore. Okay, sure. And logically, you know that Googling is not helping you, but actually, and I'm laughing because I knew logically that all the things that I was doing were not helping me. But when you have OCD and the compulsions are so overpowering, it's almost impossible to stop. So, yes, we know we need to stop feeding the OCD. We feed it by constantly giving it reassurance. We need to, if you want to make a doctor's appointment and see the doctor and leave it at that. Or if you end up on Google, Google, but then get off Google. Obviously, it's recommended that you shouldn't go on Google at all. Google is a big thing that really drives it, and it drove it for me because I lived on Google. Um, but telling you to just stop Googling or any of the reassurance things that you may be doing, whether that's checking something yourself or asking somebody to check for you, I know that that's much easier said than done. So, what you could do is just start becoming aware of just how much reassurance you're giving your OCD and see if you can start to do something differently. And it can be really small. The point is, you want to start slowly breaking the pattern. You don't want to do it all at once because it's not going to work and it's not going to last. So, for example, whenever I would experience a panic flare, like an adrenaline spike, because there's something that I'm worried about, I have I have felt a lymph node that I haven't felt before. I have just seen a video that was very triggering where somebody was sick and I have the same symptoms, or my OCD has convinced me that I have the same symptoms, or I was just chilling and relaxing and I had the worst heart palpitation and now I'm in panic mode. Okay, so what I would do whenever I was triggered like that, and what happens when we're triggered is our cortisol and adrenaline shoots sky high, and we react from that place of panic and fear. So in that moment, everything is at an absolute peak and it's at its most intense, and we feel like, and the OCD comes in and it's like, reassurance now, reassurance now. If you don't get reassurance now, and I say we because it's true, it's you and your OCD. You are not your OCD. Your OCD is separate from you, but it tries to become your whole identity. So in that moment of panic, you're feeling like, if I don't look up this thing now, if I don't get reassurance now, something terrible is going to happen. And you don't even have to know what's going to happen. You just feel it in your gut. Like you feel sick to your stomach. And you feel like if you don't get immediate comfort and reassurance, which you know by now is an illusion, then that feeling in your gut that's promising doom ahead, it's going to come true. So what I could tell you, one piece of advice that I would like to give you here is when you're in that state of panic, I want you to take care of yourself and not your OCD. Because in that moment of complete and extreme panic, we want to give the OCD what it is demanding because it's screaming at us when we're panicking, and that is reassurance. But we need to give ourselves something first. So, what I always tell people is don't tell yourself that you're not allowed to Google at all, you're not allowed to ask for reassurance, you're not allowed to feel that lymph node. Tell yourself that you're still allowed to do that. But before you do that, you're going to do something different. You're going to sit, and this is not going to be easy because I will be lying to you if I say it's easy. You are going to be extremely uncomfortable, but that means you're doing it right, and that is okay. You are going to sit with yourself and you are going to take 5 slow, if you manage 2 or 3, I'm happy with you. You're going to take a few slow, deep breaths. You're going to breathe in through your nose. And when you breathe out, you're going to breathe out as if you're breathing through a straw. So to extend your exhale. And what this does is it signals to our nervous system that everything is okay. And your brain and your OCD is telling you it's not okay, but you're letting your body know that despite what's happening up here, we're okay, we're safe. So you're going to give yourself that time while you are at the peak of your panic and your adrenaline is buzzing and going wild. You're going to take care of yourself first, and then you're going to take care of OCD. If you're able to not even look up what you need to after that, that's great, but it's not always something that's realistic. And this coming from somebody who has dealt with OCD since a child, I know that that is not realistic to tell you. Sit with yourself and take some deep breaths, and the urge to Google or ask for reassurance, poof, it's gone. It's magically gone. No, it's going to be there still, but it's not going to be as intense. And you're starting to break the pattern by doing something differently. So before you Google, you are now taking care of yourself first. And you're letting, the more we do something, the more it starts to stick. We're letting our brain know and our nervous system know that everything is okay. It doesn't feel okay, but it is okay. And it's going to be uncomfortable. And the whole time that you're taking deep breaths, you may feel like, I need to go, I need to open my phone, I need to go on TikTok or whatever, however you seek reassurance. But I want you to at least try, because that's all that we can do, is at least try to do something different. I think I'm going to leave the video right there because I'm a firm believer in not overwhelming yourself with information. I think that just starting to understand your OCD and starting to do things differently in terms of starting to break the pattern that you may have been in for such a long time are already major steps forward and in the right direction. I think it's also important to understand where your anxiety and OCD may be coming from. And there are so many things that could be contributing to that. Everything we eat plays a role in whether we have a lot of inflammation going on in our body or not, how much stress we may be under, where we are in our cycle, if you have your period or you deal with a lot of hormonal changes or fluctuations. So, all these things can contribute to OCD flare ups, and it can contribute to anxiety and physical symptoms. But I will talk about that more in other videos. Um, I really hope that this has brought some comfort for you, even just helping you to feel less alone if you're in a really bad spiral and you feel like no one in the world gets it, because I know what that feels like. But I promise you, I understand. And it's not just something I've dealt with recently, it's something I've dealt with my whole life. And I've learned how to talk to my OCD and how to handle it gently, and how to be patient with myself when I'm going through a flare up. I'm not sure how you found this video, if you're finding me on YouTube for the first time, in which case it's very nice to meet you, and I'm really happy that you're here, and I hope that this video has found you when you may need it most. If you follow me on TikTok, on Instagram or Facebook and you found the video through there, then I'm happy that you're here. And I'm really planning on growing this channel and um, putting out a lot of videos moving forward. um, I do have a blog and a podcast where I share so much more information that I hope will be really helpful for you. I will include all the links in my caption. Um, or like I'm on YouTube now, like down below, but I guess on Instagram and TikTok you'll say down below too, whatever. I will include all the links for you. And I also want to mention that I do have anxiety books that I wrote um, because of what I have gone through in my own life. And the two that I want to mention here is my Anxiety A to Z Encyclopedia, which is a replacement for Google or any kind of reassurance seeking. As someone who was constantly seeking reassurance, I know that telling someone to not search what they need to search is unrealistic. So I wrote my Anxiety A to Z as a healthy replacement for that. And then I also have a book that's specifically just talking about health anxiety and OCD and all of my stories, some of them a little bit more vulnerable and embarrassing, but I shared them still. And all of my tools and everything that all the tools that I still use to this day. OCD will always make you believe that something is wrong. It will always make you believe that you need more reassurance, you need more, more, more. It will never end. OCD is never full, it's always hungry, and it's always going to ask you to feed it. And I think just recognizing this is so important because we keep trying to reassure it, reassure it, reassure it, and it doesn't work. So please be gentle with yourself on your journey. I don't know what you're dealing with, but I do know that if you relate to absolutely anything that I mentioned in this video, that my heart goes out to you and I know what it's like to be there and to go through it. My best advice always, and I'll probably say this in every video, is to worry about getting through today. Just that. Just get through today and worry about tomorrow when it comes. And just take it one baby step at a time and just do small things each day that you start to become consistent with, because consistency is something I'm going to talk about a lot on this channel. Consistency is key. It's so important. But for now, I urge you to just try and follow something that I mentioned in this video. Try to take that time for yourself when you're in the midst of extreme panic. Try to start finding ways to break the habit, break the cycle, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.